across. Big hit across, and it's spiked down for the kill.
And now here's Hopkins, blocked, but it goes wide, and Memorial takes Edmond 2024 with a 3-1 win.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the KREF High School Huddle here on our KREFsports.tv YouTube page. Thank you so much for spending a couple moments of your weekend here with me. I'm Grayson Singleton, riding solo again for this episode of the High School Huddle. Remember, like this video, subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications for whenever we release our shows. Also, make sure you follow us on social media at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, where we will continue to post updates from our athletes as well as this podcast as we move on through the summer and get closer to the start of the high school sports season. Today on this episode, as you just saw in that intro, we're going to talk about Edmond Memorial Volleyball winning the state championship and what a season it was. At the end, also, there was a ranking of high school football teams across the state. This is cumulative across all classes. So we're going to touch on that just a little bit at the end of this episode. So let's get rocking and rolling here with Edmond Memorial Volleyball in what was quite a season for the Bulldogs this year, a team that I got to see a couple of times. And I want to go back to the Heather Harkness Invitational. That's where we're going to pick things up at the beginning of September. So in this weekend, Edmond Memorial beats Edmond North for the first time, not the only time this year, but they beat Edmond North and then sweep Bishop McGuinness, lose to Deer Creek, and then beat Edmond Santa Fe. To me, that was, and the Broken Arrow tournament was certainly an outstanding draw. But that was 2 weekends back-to-back almost. Actually, two weekends apart, where Edmond Memorial played some crazy competition. Because by this point, they had also gone to Pearland, Texas, which is in South Texas area, and had played some pretty good teams. You had Spring, Manville, Austin, Westlake, Argyle was in that tournament. But then you go to Bixby the following weekend. You go to Broken Arrow the following weekend, and play Bixby, Jinx, Broken Arrow, Owasso, Mount St. Mary, who they lose to in straight sets, and then Deer Creek again. So Edmond Memorial played a really good Deer Creek team twice in a matter of 2 weekends. Or three times rather, in a matter of 3 weekends. This one just popped up too. And my early takeaway from that season was, because I've been following a little bit, was, boy, this team is battle-tested. They got a really tough beginning to their 2024 season and won a lot of those games, lost a few of them, but were battle tested. And I'm a big believer in iron sharpening iron. I'm not a huge believer in let's start off the season, we're going to play a couple of games where we know we can get by, but we just want to start the season off with some wins. This is more apropos for, let's just say, collegiate scheduling. But I think the way Edmond Memorial's volleyball schedule shook out early in the year, we found out a lot about them. We found out that that the Lady Bulldogs were talented, that they had some things to shore up, and that they could be beat at that time. But boy, that front line looked pretty good at first, and it was that front line that carried them the rest of the way. So I like to start things after that Heather Harkness tournament, where by that time you had played, let's just say, to put it roughly, about 10 games against really, really outstanding competition. So now we get back into the gist of the season and even into the KREF season where we started to see this Edmond Memorial team a lot. And picking things up on September 9th, where Memorial goes down to Norman and takes care of the Tigers 3-0. Okay, cool. That was the 6A number 11th ranked team. Next is the 6A number 7 team. Edmond Santa Fe, dispatch of Edmond Santa Fe, 3-1. Next, we have the 6A number 10, Edmond North again. You saw the clip at the beginning of that intro. That was a game I was at. And to me, that was a game where Edmond Memorial proved they could make all the right plays. Because you look at the scores, you lose the first set 25-16. Okay, boom, we got to wake up now. 25-18, you pull away in the second set. And then the third set goes over. Eventually, Memorial gets that one 27-25 before finishing 25-19 in the fourth set. And to me, that's a team that displayed a lot of veteran presence and a lot of veteran poise. Because situationally, after that first set, when things needed to go their way in that game, they went their way. Now, whether that was actually putting the ball on the floor on the other side of the net or putting the defender in a bad position where if she was going to block an attack, it went wide of the sideline. Either way, Memorial made those plays, and that includes the eventual game-winning play at the end of that game. As a matter of fact, in this stretch, Memorial, after the Heather Harkness tournament, starting with the last two games of that weekend, Memorial at this point won 8 in a row before losing to Mount St. Mary for a second time this season. Mount St. Mary, a really good team, number 1 team in 5A. But then, after that Jinx Invitational, 3-0 against Stillwater, 3-0 against Southmore, and then at Piedmont. Now, it was at this point you defeat Piedmont to finish the regular season. So, at the end of the regular year, the Bulldogs, the Lady Bulldogs, sit 23-13, looking pretty good. And it's at this point, okay, I'm going to take you a little bit into my life here. So, when doing content, you're monitoring all this. You're saying, okay, we know we're going to want to do some kind of a preview feature for whichever one of our schools gets to the state tournament. So Memorial obviously is on my radar at that point because they're 23-13. They've looked like one of the best teams this side of Oklahoma 6A in the West Side. So you're paying attention. And I'm remembering games that I was at, and I loved the front line of this Lady Bulldogs team. With Adedeji and Hopkins and some of the other girls that were there. It was such a well-balanced team, too. And I was wondering, okay, what's the driving force behind all of this? Because obviously they want to play hard, they want to win, right? But I want to know what actually is driving this. What's the spirit that's moving this? So after Edmond Memorial gets through regionals and they get through U.S. Grant and they get through Piedmont again, now I'm starting to wonder because there's 9 days between October 15th when Memorial punched its ticket to the state tournament and October 24th, which was when the state tournament first round was played. So I get to talk to a couple of the girls, head coach Natalie Murray at that point, and so I want to find out what's behind all of this. And the answer I get was pretty interesting because it was finality. If I had to look back at that interview, I would say it's finality was what drove that. Because it came up a couple of times in talking to the girls where they expressed that this is our last go-round for a lot of us. This is it. It's going to be now or never if we're going to get this done. And why not us? If this is going to be our last rodeo, why can't it not be us? And when I talked to Coach Murray on that same interview, she used the words moving with intention. And to me, boy, does finality really motivates intention. Because if you know you can't do it again, and this is your last go-round, you're going to have to be consistent with your habits and be intentional with your habits. And Memorial did that. And it showed up on game time, in game day too. Because by that point in the season, Memorial, quite frankly, in that 8-team state tournament, if I look back on it, was the most buttoned up team. Not buttoned up in terms of personality, not buttoned up in terms of, let's just say, portraying of yourself. And I say that so as not to diss the other 7 teams that were there, because Memorial certainly displayed that. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of execution on the court, they didn't commit a whole lot of errors. The passes were crisp, the attacks were crisp, and they were precise when they needed to be. And that's when I say they were the most buttoned up. It's interesting that that was the team that won it, because they were the team that, in terms of execution, they got it done. And in the state championship, number one, go to the state semifinal after they defeated Broken Arrow 3-2 in a really, really good contest. You're going up against a Moore team that most of us believed was the best team in the state at this point in time. Because that Moore team was good. I had seen them more than once calling games. And they had everything. They had an excellent libero. Their back line was solid, and their front line was an attacking nightmare. And I was shocked when I was at that game doing some social media and Memorial beat them 3-0. Shocked. But it, to me, reinforced that they were so consistent with their habits over the course of the year that's what that breeds. Consistency can breed that kind of success and that kind of an upset. So then you go to take on an Edmond North team that we really didn't think was going to get to the state championship, but they did. And that was a team, too, that in the postseason, a lot of plays they made go their way. Sometimes I don't like the ball just bounced this way or the right plays happened to them. They forced those plays. And eventually Memorial rose up as the better team. And they were the better team. And they won state. But just going back to talking with them, and it was cool to know in the back of my head with that interview in the background that finality had been driving them, and they were able to get to that goal. That was really, really cool from Coach Murray's team. So congratulations to Edmond Memorial as the Bulldogs are now going into the next season that is about a month away, maybe a little bit less than a month away. They're going in as the reigning defending state champions, and they're going to have some to replace. But I think they'll be okay, because if the leadership that remains passes along that sense of consistency with your habits, Memorial's going to be just fine. I think so. All right, real quick before we say goodbye for this episode, Rivals released, in conjunction with the Massey ratings, the way too early Oklahoma high school football top 25, encompassing all of the classes, every high school in Oklahoma. And a couple of our schools make the cut in the top 25. Reigning 6A defending champion Bixby, I hope I'm not surprising anyone, is number 1, followed by Norman. Now, Norman's number 6. They're the next one of our schools on this list. And that's interesting because Norman's got a lot of turnover. They've got a few guys coming back, but you're talking about leaders on defense that have been gone. Phoenix Murphy, the quarterback from last year, is gone. Ryder Murphy, his brother, gone. So there's some newness with Norman. They should still be good, but it's interesting that they make that cut at number 6, given all that they lost. Memorial right behind them at 7. I've been high on Memorial for a while. We all know that. I love what they've got coming back on defense. And they added a wide receiver over the offseason. I think Memorial is going to be pretty solid. And by the way, look out for Colton McComb to have a really big year for that defense. That's my prediction. Broken Arrow at number 9, right behind number 8, Norman North. Norman North, we have talked about this before, losing the quarterback, but they returned Mason James. They returned the left tackle Daniel McMorris. Nash Henry steps in at quarterback. You lose your starting running back, Will Lundquist, but Ben Kolar still there at tight end. They've got some interesting pieces, and they've got some really good pieces too. Some excellent pieces. I'm excited to see what Norman North does. And then there's Broken Arrow, who may be the big winners of the transfer portal, if you can call it that, bringing over Bryson Brown and Samaj Stanford from rival 918 schools. I think that back end of the defense is going to be legit. And I think Octavian Roberson is a solid running back. Tayshawn Jones-Wade, solid, big-bodied wide receiver. I like him. Deer Creek at number 10 is going to be interesting, I think. They're replacing a lot, too. Deer Creek is replacing a ton. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back. The entirety of the offensive line is going to be different. All 5 starters last year were seniors. You lose some senior leadership on defense. I'm interested to see what Deer Creek can do to replace all of that and if they could still be competitive in 6A1 in that district. The next representation from our KREF schools is Moore at 17. Another school replacing a quarterback and replacing some defensive leadership as well. Replacing some skill position players both on the offensive perimeter and the defensive backfield. They're not one with a new coach. But that will be an intriguing watch as well, if you're talking about Moore. Edmond Santa Fe at 18. 2 defensive line commits over a couple weekends ago. Jalen Battle to Baylor, Langston Anderson to my alma mater, Oklahoma State. So if you have a good defensive front, that'll keep you in games. That'll really keep you in games. They've got some good players in that secondary too. So defense is where I'm going to be looking at Edmond Santa Fe to see, can you rise to being one of those top 10 defenses in the state? Maybe even top 5. That's what I'm looking at for the Wolves this year. And that's it. No, Edmond North. It just says North on this graphic. But I'm going to guess that's Edmond North at 24. Last year was a transition year for Edmond North. I'm interested to see if they show growth this year. That's going to be my curiosity, is do they grow from last year, ushering in a few new guys after losing some bodies after the 2023 season. So there you go. The way too early Oklahoma high school football top 25. It's never too early to talk about football here in Oklahoma. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the KREF High School Huddle here on this KREFsports.tv YouTube page. Remember, subscribe to this page. Follow us on all of our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. We're going to keep the content coming for you guys as you guys keep on coming and as we keep getting closer to the high school streaming sports season. My name is Grayson Singleton. We will talk to you next week. Take it easy, everybody.